hello, and everyone who's joined here. I'm Megha, the TLB member and interview for today. And today we have the Murk author and the Auroran Pages, Miss Vaishali Menon. So, could you please introduce yourself to the viewers?
Okay, hi, I'm Vaishali. So, I'm a writer and I've authored two books so far. So, my first book is a book of poetry, it's called Magic in the Murk. And my latest release is my novel. It's called Auroran Pages. It's a series, and the first book is out right now.
So, as Magic in the Murk is a poetry collection, so can you tell us, the theme of the book, what inspired you to write that? Because poetry is something different. Not everybody is into it. It's not like story or fiction.
Okay. Let me tell you when I wrote this book first. I wrote this book during my final year of college.
Okay.
So I believe that especially for writers, artists in general, actually, a lot of our life feeds into our art. Okay, and this is true for most cases. And even if you're writing about something else, right, something that happened to somebody else, that incident that has happened to them is something that has triggered something in you, has made you feel something. So this is what we try and channel into art. So I think during my final year of college, it was quite a stressful time for me academically, and there was a lot happening in my personal life as well. And I found that writing is a way for me to release my emotions. Okay, so every time something really good happens or really bad happens in my life, the first thing I do is I pull out my notes app and I write. Okay, I don't really guide it a certain way. I just write whatever comes, and it serves as a huge release. So throughout the year, I kept writing a lot of these things. I wrote a lot of poetry. I wrote a lot of sonnets, and some 4 or 5 lines here and there. And I think by the end of it, one day I just sat down and I went through everything that I'd written, and they seemed to follow a certain set of themes. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'd like for everybody else to read this as well. So why not compile this into a book? So that's how the book actually came to be. I didn't intend for it to be a book, but it was really more like a byproduct of what I was going through at the time. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
I'm really so jealous with you for it because there's so much going on inside me, and I always if I could have written, so I wrote and penned on my thoughts, something like that. And you're really lucky, or I must say blessed to be a writer and you can pen down your thoughts, jot down your thoughts. Okay, I'm jealous now.
Oh no. Let me tell you what, you keep writing. Okay, you keep writing. One day you may not know it, you may have enough to publish it out as a book. So you are on the track. Just keep at it, that's all.
So I think I should make some notes or keep a diary with me. So where whatever I'm feeling or writing my thoughts here and there, I should write in somewhere in a safe place. That would be much better.
Definitely, I'd love to read what you've written sometime.
So as your second book you said is Auroran Pages, is a fantasy book. So what challenges did you face? First is a poetry and second is a fantasy book. So was there any challenges did you face while writing that? Because sometimes during writing process also you're writing and something, oh shit, I should not write a fantasy, I should be more in in poetry, because that was my first book. So did it happen with you?
Yes. It did actually. In the beginning stages, it was a challenge, because I didn't know how. Like I told you, poetry, it's not something that I forced, right? It's something that I just wrote, and eventually I decided, okay, let me just get this published out. But the stories, they were all in my head, okay? And there's this process that happens when you try to translate what's in your head onto the page. In the beginning, it's going to be very tough. Okay, I wrote a bunch of crap. I'm going to be honest. I wrote a bunch of things that I cannot show outside. But I think that's where the magic happens as well. The magic is in your failures. So there was this burning desire for me to get this out. It wouldn't let me sleep. It wouldn't let me eat in peace, right? I just had this burning desire. I need to get it out. But there was this process that I had to go through where I met with a lot of failures. But eventually you reach a point where you don't have to force anything, right? It just happens. It just flows. And like I mentioned before, I'm not really planning on writing a story, on writing a poem while I'm writing something. I just write whatever comes to me, I write. So I feel more like an instrument. And as you get good at it, right? As you get good at translating onto the page what's in your head, I think whatever you've written, your words, they tend to take their own form. So yes, and with regard to fantasy, I think that's where the magic happens as well. The magic is in your failures. So there was this burning desire for me to get this out. It wouldn't let me sleep. It wouldn't let me eat in peace, right? I just had this burning desire. I need to get it out. But there was this process that I had to go through where I met with a lot of failures.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually you reach a point where you don't have to force anything, right? It just happens. It just flows. And like I mentioned before, I'm not really planning on writing a story, on writing a poem while I'm writing something. I just write whatever comes to me, I write. So I feel more like an instrument. And as you get good at it, right? As you get good at translating onto the page what's in your head, I think whatever you've written, your words, they tend to take their own form. So yes, and with regard to fantasy, I think fantasy was in me all the while. I mean, I tend to go about my day, I fantasize about a lot of things. So yeah, that's more like, an inclination. That is all.
Okay, so I think I should also read. I'm not much of a fantasy reader, to be very honest. So I think I should. But many people have told me that you should read fantasy, and I'm more of a women fiction reader. So now I'm planning
That is nice. Okay.
to go with fantasy reading. So I think I should start with your book. That just
You should. Thank you. Thank you.
I think. Okay, so another I really want to know, what does your writing routine look like? What's your habit or any specific ritual you follow while writing? Because you might get stuck somewhere while writing or something like that. So is there anything like that?
Yes, there have been a lot of days when I'm just staring at a blank page.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is where I think a routine comes to help. So a lot of people, I mean, we're all created during different times of the day, right? We work best at it. So to me, it's more like, as soon as I wake up, the first thing I do is write. Right? And they may not be the final words, okay? I'm not writing down prim and polished sentences, but I am just writing. And I do set a goal, like let's say every day I write a page, okay? So at the end of 30 days, I have 30 pages. At the end of 60 days, I have 60 pages.
Okay.
There are some days when I'm just, staring at a blank page and I cannot write anything. But when that happens, something I found really helps is you try and change your environment. Okay. So what is something that really inspires you? Do you find yourself really relaxed when there's a candle burning in front of you, or there are plants around you? Or do you find yourself getting... So I found that, when I'm on a walk, there are so many things that inspire me because I'm constantly looking at a lot of things. I'm constantly looking at the streetscapes that are changing, the flowers, the trees. So change your environment. And if you cannot write in your room, maybe just take your pen and paper out, go to a park and start writing. That could help. So, so have a routine, and your routine should be based on which part of the day you are most creative, right? And even then, yes, you will face challenges, you will be stuck. So try changing your environment. Maybe there's something stuck in your environment. Maybe you're not getting inspired, right? So yeah, just shuffle up a few things. Talk to people, watch interviews of authors or creative people that you really like. You never know, something they say, some word that they say might spark it up in your head.
Okay, that's a good idea. I think I should also, and write something good. Okay, so being a reader, I have so many favorite characters out there. Some characters I'm really obsessed with in a good way and in a bad way also. So is there any character which you wrote, like you have wrote only one fantasy book, so is there any character in that book which is really very close to you? It's not like it should be the main character only, but side characters also. Is there any character which is really very close to you and you like you're obsessed with that character, something like that?
Okay, so I cannot really pick one character to be above the rest because I've given it my all for every character. But there are some characters that I really enjoyed writing from a writer perspective, and I'm not going to pick the main character. So, in fact, I don't even know if I favor the main character so much. But there is a character. So, some of the characters that I've enjoyed writing. So, there is this boy. His name's Ryan. He's in the story.
Okay.
So, I picked Ryan first because the experience of writing him was it was unexpected. I think that's the way to put it. So,
Okay.
like I said before, it's more like I feel like an instrument, right? I'm not really forcing anything onto the page, but rather there is something that needs to be told through me. There's some burning desire to tell the story. And I think Ryan's story, the moment I started writing him, it just flowed. I had to hardly think about him, right? And the way his story flowed on the page is very, very, very close to his character. So he's this really happy-go-lucky guy who's traveling around the world, and he hardly takes anything serious, right? And then I don't know, he just sees this girl, and then he just falls in love. Like you don't even know where they both fall in love with each other, but it's just like it's in the air, right?
Okay.
And because I wasn't really forcing anything onto the page, right? The moment he falls in love is also the moment I've fallen in love, and I don't even know it. Like we never saw it coming. So yeah, it's more like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to tell him what to do. He did everything by himself. Whatever he spoke by himself. And I just had the pen. He was just using me to tell him. So that is why I think Ryan is one of my most favorite characters. And maybe the second character that I would pick is this character named Lysa. So Lysa is, what can I say? She has a lot of grace, right? I mean, as people just using me to tell him. So that is why I think Ryan is one of my most favorite characters. And maybe the second character that I would pick is this character named Lysa. So Lysa is, what can I say? She has a lot of grace, right? I mean, as people we are flawed. We can't really call ourselves that we're all white or we're all black. We have a lot of gray areas.
Yeah.
And sometimes for the sake of something that we love, we tend to do a lot of things that we didn't mean to do, right?
Yeah, got it,
If we are in our own country. Yes. So, love makes us do a lot of things. And it's not necessarily love toward the person. It could be something you're really passionate about. It could be, your love for your craft or your love for a certain thing, right?
Yes.
That can actually push you to do a lot of things you wouldn't otherwise have done. And Lysa is that kind of a character. Once she, attaches her heart to something, she would do anything for it. And she's a very powerful woman. She's a strong woman, more so than the main character or, the characters on the protagonist's side. So yeah, I think I would pick these two characters.
By listening your answer, I just said that you just started writing and everything went with the flow. So, some days back, I was reading Manav Paul's book, and it's Antima. And in that, he has wrote that sometimes character, overpowers you, and you just go numb that you don't even know what are you writing. It feels like they themselves writing. So I was curious because I'm not a writer, I'm just a reader, and I was like, is it really true? Something like is it happening like that? You want to write a character because that's your thought process, it's your character, you're writing, and how something which is not even real is overpowering you or taking your thought process and just writing what they want to write. So is that really true? It just really happened with you too?
Yes,
I just want to know. I'm curious.
Yes.
I'm just curious about that.
Okay. Yes, it's actually true. I gave you the example of Ryan before, right? So I didn't really force him to do it. Like, he did everything by himself. So I think it also comes with a lot of practice. And as a writer or as a creator, okay, I'm sure a lot of artists can relate to this. As somebody who makes something, I think you should have the ability to put yourself behind the scenes, okay? So when you are making something, it's all about that work of art. It's about that work of craft. Okay.
Okay.
So if you are going to force yourself onto those characters, onto the book, or onto your design, whatever, it's just going to be a replica of you, right?
Okay.
And that that's not the purpose of art. The purpose of art is that it has to find a home in the world, and
Okay.
people who actually relate to it, they can relate to it. If not, it's okay. It has found its place. But you, as the maker of something, you should have the ability to put yourself behind the scenes, and that's really where the magic happens. And see, in the beginning, like I told you, I struggled, right?
Yeah.
And I struggled so much because I was of this mindset that, okay, I am writing this, and what would I make her do? What would I make him say? But after a point, there was this period of time where I just let go. I'm not trying to force myself on you. You take whatever form it is you want to take. I'm not going to interfere. I'm just your instrument. Say whatever you want to say. I'm just going to pen it down. So that's when the magic actually started happening. So the characters, they speak for themselves. Their actions, they perform by themselves. You get to call yourself the author. Okay, I think I think we are blessed to be able to call ourselves that, but it ends there. We are merely instruments for things to pass. And when you actually reach that point, that's when your work starts progressing.
So so you just finished book, you just stopped writing, you finished your writing and everything. So you felt empty like when I read a book and the book it's too good or something and it's just finished. I feel so blank. I feel like, oh God, now I have to leave that book. The character will not be with me for a very long time. Do you also felt that while writing your fantasy novel? Now now that book is closed, now that character will not be with me for a very long time. Or now I can't write that unless you are writing a sequel of the book. That's a different thing. But do you also felt that when you finished your book?
Okay. Okay, am I clear?
Yes, you're clear.
Okay. So I did feel that, but it's not really as soon as I finished my book.
Okay.
Because I mean, I gave them a life. I mean, they took their own life through me. But I did give them my all, right? I put in all of my effort. Anything and everything they could do, they did through me.
Okay.
So I think a lot of artists, they kind of have this tendency to attach themselves to their work. I have it too. Okay, I'm not telling you no. But it was like months after the book was over, right? I suddenly had this thought of the protagonist from my book. And I felt like she was not the same person that I'd written about in the first.
Okay.
Right? During the process of the second book, somewhere she had evolved. So her ideologies were different. The way she behaved, it was different. And they tend to stay with you, right? So right now what I carry in me is an evolved version of her. And probably when I go back to the first book, I see a much younger version of her. So do I miss her? Yes, a little bit. But I'm also happy about the fact that she has evolved and she's now staying with me.
Okay.
Right? So I think as a writer, you get to be a part of this process of evolution. So that is something I enjoy. I enjoy watching people grow. I enjoy watching people, acquire new habits, acquire new ideologies. They learn more about themselves. It's more like you watch a child grow. Okay, so I have a tendency to attach themselves to their work. I have it too. Okay, I'm not telling you no, but it was like months after the book was over, right? I suddenly had this thought of the protagonist from my book, and I felt like she was not the same person that I'd written about in the first.
Okay.
Right? During the process of the second book, somewhere she had evolved. So her ideologies were different. The way she behaved, it was different. And they tend to stay with you, right? So right now what I carry in me is an evolved version of her. And probably when I go back to the first book, I see a much younger version of her. So do I miss her? Yes, a little bit. But I'm also happy about the fact that she has evolved and she's now staying with me.
Okay.
Right? So I think as a writer, you get to be a part of this process of evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I enjoy. I enjoy watching people grow. I enjoy watching people, acquire new habits, acquire new ideologies. They learn more about themselves. It's more like you watch a child grow. Okay, so I don't have children, but I think all the characters in my book. That's how I feel about them. I feel like they're all my children. Like my books are my children. So do I miss a younger version of them? Yes, I do. But I'm more happy about the fact that they're growing up. But as a reader, so obviously I think something that if you are a writer, something that you should do is read a lot. Okay, but as a reader, I do have this tendency to miss certain characters.
Okay.
Like for example, I was reading Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. So that was a book that had me hooked to it until the end. To an extent where I actually put my everyday activities on hold just to finish that book. But once that book was over, I didn't know what to do with my life. So I missed those characters. Yeah, I missed Jane. I missed Mr. Bingley. So I missed Darcy. So yeah, so all of these and maybe that's because I'm not a writer of that book. I did not conceive those characters, and I don't know what those characters are doing now. They don't evolve with me. My part with the book is over. So I think how I feel with regard to this question, as a writer and as a reader, they are different things. As a writer, no, I don't miss them. But as a reader, yes, I do miss that.
Okay, so it happens with me also. When I think I have read a book around 2 to 3 years back, and I'm yet obsessed with a female lead character of a book. And it's been 2 to 3 years, and no other character had hooked me so much, and no other character, overpowered me so much that female lead character I have done. So I'm really obsessed with it till yet. So as a reader, I can understand. But as a writer, I really wanted to know your point of view, and you have already told, and I really love that. So as you have written in both these genres, in poetry and fantasy or fiction, so what advice would you like to give to the aspiring authors who want to, explore the genre, the poetry and fantasy?
Okay. Exploring different genres. Okay. Okay, let me tell you my point of view, my process. So like I told you, I'm not really forcing anything onto the page, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I feel something very intensely and I have to write it down. So that's how it has always been with me. And the fact that, one of the books turned out to be a book of poetry and another book turned out, to be a novel. It's really like the words take their own form. Okay? So I am not controlling anything. I think that's also one of the most beautiful things about writing is that writing is nothing but it's a raw form of expression, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That is all it is. In fact, I tell you how I started writing. It's because I never spoke much in school. I was a very shy kid. I was extremely introverted. I'd always hide myself with a book. I didn't want people looking at my face. That's how I used to be. But I had so many things to tell, right? I had so many stories to tell. I longed to talk to people, and I just wrote them down because that way people can just read. They don't have to look at my face. They don't have to listen to my voice. And I just started writing. So that's how I started writing. It's just a raw form of expression. And this form of expression, if you just let it evolve, it can take different structures. Okay? It can take different figures. Like some of the words that it could just be a note on my phone, which eventually turned out to be a poem. A couple of lines that I written out of nowhere. Probably it was just me venting out, or it was me just seeing something and suddenly I get inspired and write down a couple of lines. And then eventually I realized, okay, it could actually be a very good sonnet, and I put it in my book. And sometimes there are paragraphs of incidents that happened in my life, of incidents I've seen happen in other people's. And slowly what happens is there is a collection of paragraphs, and that becomes a page. And a collection of these pages becomes a chapter. And a collection of these chapters, it becomes a book. So, to people who actually want to write in different genres, I would tell you in the beginning, please don't restrict yourself having a genre in mind, because it's not really about what you pick. It's about what picks you.